Welcome back. A couple of New York stories to bring you now. We start in the city where officials, they're trying to help more needy people sign up for food stamps. It just launched a website and an ad campaign encouraging people who need help to get help. The city already has more than 1 million people on food stamps, and it says hundreds of thousands more are eligible. And so many people are at Rikers Island that can't afford bail. They're stuck there for weeks, months. We've done a story on this. It's unbelievable how many people are there just because they can't make bail. All these things would seem to give ammunition to de Blasio, who's even forwarding a plan here to help pay for bail for some of the folks with a set-aside fund. He's been talking about income inequality for a long time. But I have a question. When people say, let's not just have a robust food stamp program, but now let's actively solicit people to sign up for food stamps. And if you're in jail, perceivably for some violation, and you can't make it, let's set aside a fund to pay your bail for you. Does there run a risk at all? You could be interpreted one of two ways. Income inequality is a real issue and it's getting bigger, or we're not only doing a safety net here, but we're trying to encourage others, even if they're not asking, to even inform them more about more safety net opportunities that are there.
So I would want to decouple these two things because I think they're profoundly different. I think that if you qualify for access to food and you do not have access to food right now for whatever reason, because one, you don't know how to get access to food, two, you're afraid of the system, maybe you're illegal,
Yep.
The citizenship is you're not a citizen. There are children every day because of either their parents' ignorance of the system or fear that won't have access to food. I think it is completely appropriate, and I think fundamental to our society, that we do everything in our power to make sure that anyone who is hungry has access to food. And if that means advertising the usage of food stamps for those who qualify for food stamps, more power to you. There's a very big difference in my mind from then saying, let's also set up a public fund so that if you've been accused of a crime and you are in jail, that you have the ability to pay a bail so that you can come out of the system while you're adjudicated. The difference there is if there are bails being set that are disproportionate to the income level of the person accused of a crime, that's a judicial remedy for that. You deal with that system. I do not believe that the taxpayers should be putting a pool of money together in order to then pay that bail. I think let's address the systemic problem there, which is judicial reform.
Does the right at all have an argument if they say, my God, let's get a suture here, okay, for the bleeding heart? Because if you need food stamp help, go seek it out. Why should we be spending money promoting here a safety net? If they make that argument, is it legitimacy or is that just hard-hearted?
You got me. It's not a legitimate argument. There are people in Rockland County, middle income, lower middle income, who are starving, or who don't have enough food on the plate. And we there took a position that if they were eligible, properly, legally eligible, they should get food stamps. People who are misusing it, that's a whole different category, okay? But if you're eligible and you need it and you're in a position, we did want to have people get food stamps when they needed it. The problem, of course, is that you've got to watch for fraud, because what's happening in case is people are putting the money in and getting cash out. They're not buying food, some who would abuse the system. And if you took this as a two-pronged thing, people who are really needy, I agree with Mike, need the food, that's one thing. But the numbers of folks who would use it to better their pocketbooks solely by using it in a fraudulent manner, along with, by the way, the various people who are helping them at shopping malls or shopping centers or bodegas, whatever, those folks should be held accountable. And that's where I think big money could be found.
Yeah, but Scott, if I could, though, there are just as many, because I respect the fact that there are instances we will always find of anyone abusing any system. I don't know that there has ever been any proven data that says that people abuse food stamps more than they abuse any other government benefit, or any other benefit for that matter. I mean, look, every day in Albany we see the abuse that goes on there. But if we think about this in terms of the promotion of food stamps, and if you qualify, get access to them, and then we would take the question food stamps off and say Medicare, or access to prescription drug benefits that you're entitled to under Medicare, and if a senior isn't actively looking for that benefit but needs it, would we have the same quandary right now? I don't think we would.
But there is fraud in the food stamp program.
Sure.
Just
no doubt
recently
about
in Rockland, not hundreds, but literally tens of folks were arrested for doing just that kind of thing.
I know you got to move on, but I just want to say, keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with the city promoting this program, food stamps. The feds, for the most part, pay for food stamps. The city pays the administrative cost. So if you qualify and people are hungry, I think about the segment this show did last Friday night about 42,000 kids in the homeless shelters last year. But at the same time, I am concerned. I'm kind of in your you got me moment, because I am concerned. I thought my liberal friends will have a heart attack. I thought that Giuliani cracking down on welfare was a good thing. I thought Bloomberg cracking down on welfare was a good thing. I think people should work rather than the crutch of programs.
I want to get to this item real quickly. We know about the fighting that's going on with the teachers union and the governor and the whole opt-out campaign. Well, it's still going on. In fact, the union launching a multi-million-dollar ad campaign featuring spots like this.
Cuomo wants to pile on high-stakes testing, privatize classrooms, and divert money away from public schools by giving huge tax breaks to the wealthy. Governor, New Yorkers agree. Put politics aside and put our kids first.
Now, this, of course, follows that opt-out campaign where the teachers union encouraged more than 150,000 kids to skip standardized tests just last week. So I guess here's the question, real quickly, guys. Who blinks first? At the end of the day, does the governor capitulate because he sees 150,000 kids and the number growing that don't participate in these things? Or does the union say, you know, we're not going to keep spending millions of dollars on ads and an ad campaign here because the governor's not going to give on this test?
I'm not sure it's up to the governor in a sense that you may not have statistically enough information to make rational judgments about teacher performance, school performance, or otherwise. So I think it's really going to come down to a question of, did enough participate to actually provide enough information to change how we look at this?
But you know the state's threatening sanctions against those schools and the educators where you see big opt-outs for the kids, because you can't punish the kids.
Yeah.
They're going to end up punishing the schools.
And end of the day, they will not.
They
You are
won't.
not going to punish schools and children. You can reform what has to be done, but they won't do it. Look at the feds have made that kind of argument too. They said, well, you know, maybe we're going to have sanctions or something. New York State politicians in New York State won't allow it. So in the end, something's got to change in the Common Core. By the way, just as a matter of note, my children are taking the exams, not so much because of one side or the other, although I don't believe the teachers took the right position here. You know, there's a whole gamut of discussion items on that. But why not take the test? Why not?
Oh, I agree with you. The hate mail I got, Scott, and also I thought the messaging, it's not like kids can avoid tests or measurement tools for the balance of their high school years, let alone beyond that. I just thought the messaging was terrible, even if the testing's imperfect and the methodology and everything else. But, Mike, there's always a winner and a loser in politics, right? How does this play out?
I think Scott is absolutely right. I'm fairly confident that what will wind up happening is that there will be a reform. There will be some fixes that have to get made to this. I want to caution though that what's happening
to the test itself, or more to who participates?
To both in terms of how often testing is used, what the tests are used for, benchmark measurements of children, measurements of teacher performance. I think what happened here was, and I think this is where the reform will eventually wind up. I think we had a confluence of events. You had parents concerned about changes in the way their children were being taught through a new curriculum, the Common Core standards to set new curriculum. 2, the change in the way we are going to evaluate our teachers, and then the proposal that 50% of their entire performance would be judged based on a standardized test. And then 3, the volume of testing for kids, period. And so you have parents who are furious with the amount of testing their kids are getting. They're confused and we're upset with the way Common Core was rolled out. Not that they're necessarily opposed to raising the standards. And then you have teachers teachers whose entire performance is now going to, 50% of it is now going to be judged based on someone's score on a standardized test. And all this came together to create this massive movement and angst towards, particularly targeted at the governor. And so I think what you're going to wind up seeing happen is reforms in the number of tests that kids actually have to take. I think that you're going to see a concerted effort to do much more education about Common Core technique and sort of the information that goes into building a curriculum around Common Core. I mean, I can tell you, I have a second grader. He's not in the testing stages yet, but when he first came home with the sort of the new methodologies for math and the way he's supposed to think about math, the first couple of days we were clueless. Then we figured out, like, wow, this is pretty innovative stuff.
We
should have, we should have. I mean, if I could have done math this way, I would have been a math genius. So I think
let's not get ahead of ourselves.
maybe never, but nonetheless, I think what's happening here is all of this angst about education broadly. I think what will wind up happening is at the end there will be changes to the volume of testing that occurs.
You think there's a deal here?
I think there'll be reform. We've been down this road before, so we already know the answer. The same exact thing happened to Governor Pataki, where the UFT went off with their very effective ad campaign. His poll numbers went south. The following year, there was reform. They worked out some type of agreement.
Okay, and make your opinion heard. You certainly told me you didn't agree with me what I had to say about the test and my objection to the opting out. So be part of our conversation. Head over to Facebook and Twitter and answer our question today. Who do you think is going to blink first here? The governor? Teachers union? It sounds like from our table they think it'll be a combination of the two. All right, when we come back here, Obamacare is actually getting more popular. It's not me telling you this here. Poll numbers are showing that it's going in one direction, and that's pointing north here. So the question is, what happens next year? Do Democrats still run away from the issue, or do they run on it?